Good morning. It's March 19th, Park Circle, playing the shorts, and thinking about Numbers 15, which feels like a pretty abrupt jump after Numbers 14, in which the people of Israel have failed to go into the land of promise. Numbers 15, right after in 14, the people have rebelled and not gone into the land, and then rebelled and trying to go in the land and been defeated. The Lord begins talking about offerings. Now the offerings will have a grain offering provided along with them. The most interesting thing about this passage, though, is that he talks about how there'll be only one statute, both for the native and the sojourner. Starting in verse 22, we have instructions for when the congregation sins unintentionally, as well as when individuals might sin unintentionally. And again, the commandments are the same, both to the people of Israel and the sojourner in their midst. The passage starts to wind down where they find this guy collecting sticks on the Sabbath. They put him into custody, and they find out that this counts as high-handed sin to neglect the Lord's Sabbath. They end up putting him to death. Feels really heavy, but apparently is righteous in the Lord's sight, so we have to agree with him. The Lord then goes on to instruct them to put tassels on their garments as reminders not to sin, to remember the Lord. Numbers 15 is a really interesting passage because it just points out how the Lord has always had a plan for both his people and the Gentiles, that ruled that they would be together, that sojourners would be brought into the people of the Lord. It also shows that there's a difference between sin committed intentionally and sin committed unintentionally, and that unintentional sins can be forgiven, whereas the intentional sins are met with God's wrath. So let's rejoice today that the Lord makes provision for the sojourner, because without that, Gentiles have no hope. Let's rejoice that we don't need blue tassels to remember the law of the Lord, because the Lord's given us his Spirit to remind us of all the words that he said. Let's rejoice that the Lord forgives unintentional sins through Jesus Christ, and that even intentional sins can be forgiven when we repent and turn to him, and that he's made that sacrifice. See you next time. Starting in verse 22, we have instructions for when the congregation sins unintentionally, as well as when individuals might sin unintentionally. And again, the commandments are the same.